Welcome to Death Holler. Do you like scary movies? Welcome to Season 3, Slash or Pass. There will be laughter, tears, tender moments.
Jason, my special boy.
But most of all, screams. Remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you have a killer time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Death Holler. I'm your host, the Reverend Dr. Death, and joining me, as always, is the co-host with the luck of the Irish, La Urena. Found any pots of gold lately, Urena?
Well, as previously discussed prior to starting the show, I thought my pot of gold was in the form of marrying a white man. That has turned out to not be the case at all.
Well, maybe you don't, or maybe you're not as lucky as I thought you were. Today, we're getting into the St. Patty's Day spirit by covering one of the more varied holiday-themed slashers. Despite its dubious quality, many horror fans have found a little something, or rather a little someone, to love in the Leprechaun franchise.
Little people.
So for this episode, put your pain away, chill out, be ready to share your finest weed, and please don't touch that pot of gold. But first, if you're enjoying the podcast, we would appreciate it if you could take the time to like, comment, and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you prefer. It helps us get more visibility on podcast listings and helps us grow. Also, consider following us on social media. You can find us on TikTok and Twitter under Death Holler Pod, at least on TikTok as long as it's not banned by the United States government.
Thanks, Trump.
Thanks, Biden. And we can be found on Instagram and Facebook under Death Holler Podcast. We appreciate everyone who listens and hope you enjoy the show. Urena, I didn't tell you to do this, but I think you might need to play the Attack of the Beasts segment right now because this whole damn episode is one of those.
All right, here it goes.
What is that? What is that? What is it? Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes!
I bet you were screaming that after watching that second movie. Oh, my eyes.
Well, I didn't finish the second movie. I finished it in a previous time, but not this time.
Speaking of that, I was going to try to do an Attack of the Bees, a legit one on this episode, which I brought that up to Cody and he had a good point. He's like, what's more B movie than Leprechaun already? And I'm like, fair point. But I tried to go even more into the B realm, and I gave up. It's a movie called Skinned Deep. I want to say it came out in like the early 2000s. It is a complete and utter shitty remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like same setup. There's this family that's randomly traveling somewhere. You see at the beginning of the movie, some old man gets like ganked by somebody in this like weird ass mask, and And then, like, this family happens upon, like his remains, and the local police are there, and like the sheriff talks to him, and he's all creepy, just like cops are in these movies. And he's like, it was an animal attack. Just keep on moving, and like,
Nothing to see here, folks.
and then they travel down the road a little bit, and they run over like some like a spike in the road that like the killer is left out, and you can see the killer like reeling it back on his little fishing line. And the dad's all like, oh, gee golly, that sort. So he's like, I'm going to go to the local, store and see if I can rustle up some help for our car. And he goes there. And of course, the lady is in with the psychos, just like in Chainsaw. And there's a whole thing after the guy leaves, and she tells him to come back and they can stay the night at her house while her son fixes the car. And she stares at the camera for like, it feels like 20 minutes or something, just with a grin on her face. And it's like, I get it, lady, you're in on this. So
hint, wink, wink.
Wink, wink. I would go ahead and say it that I'm the killer, but I think you've got it right, that sort of thing. By the way, the acting is atrocious, so that wouldn't be that outside of part. Yeah,
I am shocked.
More so than the movies we're getting ready to discuss, if you can believe that. So hold any complaints you have for Leprechaun with the knowledge that it can get worse, like, and this movie proves it. Literally, whenever they're walking up to the house, like the dad, I mean, his kind of acting is like, looks a little weird here, but it's okay, kids, let's go inside. It's like so bland, and like, I mean, it's like if you went with your friends to make a movie, this is the kind of acting that you would make. It's that bad. The only reason I booted this up was because I saw Warwick Davis was in it, and I'm like, another horror movie with him in it. And I stayed until I saw him in the movie. I gave it that much time. He's one of the brothers of the psychos that's in the movie. You got an old grandpa who they call the Surgeon General, and he looks like he's dead, just like Grandpa and Chainsaw was. And then it goes around the table to the different brothers, and like Warwick Davis is in a straitjacket with like red makeup around his eyes to make him look like he's got like these rheumatic eyes or whatever, like he's insane, and like he's just kind of mumbling to himself. And then it kind of went off to the other brothers, and I'm like, nope, fuck it, I don't have time for this bullshit, so I just cut the movie off. So there you go.
I don't understand how. Okay, I can understand you watching In the Hood and being like, okay, I can keep going, but I don't understand how you watched all these movies and was like, okay, let me do one more, like just one more.
It's the cheese of it. Like, I mean, after this movie, it's actually this movie that got me to go on with the rest of them, because I watched part one. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I watched part one Leprechaun. I'm like, fuck this series. I forgot how cheesy some of this was. And then I watched this, and I'm like, okay, well, that's the absolute worst. So I think I can endure a few more of these. And I went into it with that mindset, and I'm like, yep, still better than Skin Deep. So there you go. And that's SKINNED, deep. I know it sounds like skin deep, but it's skinned deep.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, horrible movie. Like, I just, and it's also, it's a shot on video movie, I'm pretty sure, because it didn't even have like widescreen. Like when you were watching on your TV, it looked like it was an iPhone that was playing on your TV, like blown up on your TV screen, that sort of look.
Great.
Yeah.
Quality.
It's, and just awful all around. But there you go, folks. Skip it. Don't even try to watch it on Tubi. I know it's free, but you'll be demanding your more than your money's worth back on that one.
It's time that you will lose more than anything.
Mm-hmm. So let's get started with the original Leprechaun movie. Came out in 93. It's the OG of the series. Tagline is, your luck just ran out.
That's pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, not too bad. Couple variations on that was one, her luck just ran out, talking about Jennifer Aniston, and like I think there was one more, something about it was luck running out, but that one was the best. I think your luck just ran out.
On the contrary, I think her luck, the luck was with her, because she's lucky she got another film role after this.
She was already in Friends around this time, so I don't know if, yeah, she had just did like the first season of Friends, I think, right around the time that she did this, or she just landed it. So it was around this time.
Hey.
Directed by Mark Jones, written by Mark Jones, music by Kevin Kiner and Robert J. Walsh. Made for a budget of $1 million. It actually made $8.6 million. So that's why they kept making more of them.
Oh, come on, guys! This wasn't Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, oh, we made a little bit of money. Like,
and just to cover, we're not going to be covering all these in depth like we normally do, just because I don't see the point, honestly.
No.
There's no box office for the next one that we'll cover after this, because they were all, I'm pretty sure, straight to video after this movie.
Even In the Hood?
Yeah, In the Hood was straight to video. Principal players, we have Jennifer Aniston with original nose.
Wait, did she get a nose job?
Yes, she did.
I didn't know that. Okay, well, maybe, I don't know. I just thought she had a chubby face, and this one she had her baby fat, whatever. But I was thinking, she hasn't aged a lot. I know she doesn't use a vino. We discussed this already, okay? I do believe she drinks smart water. You see her walking all over fucking town with those bottles, and it is, decent way to get electrolytes. But, I didn't realize she got a nose job. Though any work she's had done is pretty fucking subtle.
Yeah, well, I think her nose, like in this one, her nose is a little bit rounder and a little bit larger, and I think it's more like the straight, smaller size nose that a lot of actresses in Hollywood have, like that, very aquiline, I think is the technically the adjective, for that, but like very just narrow, like bridged nose, and this one was a little bit larger. But
so what you're saying is I'm not breaking through Hollywood anytime soon. Great. It's the kind of news I needed today.
Well, sometimes, but you're lucky in other ways. You married a white man.
Oh, yeah. There's my pot of gold.
She plays Tori Redding in this movie. She's technically a final girl. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get to the discussion on that. Of course, she was in Friends with Courtney Cox. Horrible Bosses 1 and 2. She was actually super hot in those movies. We Are the Millers, super hot in that as well. She was in an episode of Cougar Town, which was a production David Arquette and Courtney Cox. So
apparently she owed Courtney a favor.
Apparently so. Bruce Almighty,
oh, yes.
the Iron Giant, Rockstar. I think she's pretty hot in that one too, if I remember right. And of course, she was the love interest in Office Space. So she had that 15 Pieces of Flair or whatever it was. So that is a great movie. That's so good. We have Warwick Davis playing Lubdan the Leprechaun.
I didn't know he had a name.
I didn't know he did either until I was looking through IMDb.
Okay.
He's a mythical creature slasher. And they basically make up the rules to him as the movies change. So.
Yes, and everyone's always after his Lucky Charms.
That kind of ties into some of the trivia we'll get to later, but yeah. Of course, he was in Star Wars. He was a very young man whenever he did those movies.
Okay, wait. Why don't I remember him in Star Wars?
He was one of the Ewoks.
Oh. Okay.
Kenny Baker was R2-D2, another little person, but then like Warwick Davis played, what was it? Thicket, something like that was his name. Wicket, I don't know. One of the main Ewok that that interacts with Princess Leia in the movie. He played that character.
Okay.
He's been in Doctor Who several times. Harry Potter, he's one of the head goblin in that one at the bank. He's also the he's Professor Flitwick, I think's his name. That's teaches them. It's not herbology; it's something else. I can't remember what his character does, but he's in that series of movies multiple times. Of course, he was in the Ewok movies, so he redid his roles in those. As terrible as they were, still better than modern Star Wars, though, which is saying a whole lot. And then he was, of course, in Skin Deep, which is just friggin' miserable. So there you go.
Hold on. Before you move on, have you watched Willow in the most recent years?
I have not, and they just speaking of that, they just canceled the TV series on Disney Plus because the
Ooh.
ratings were so bad.
He's not in that one, is he?
Yes, he is.
Oh, he is. Okay.
And they went uber woke with it too. Like the biggest complaint that people have about it is that it seems like they took 2023 teenagers from California and dumped them in a medieval world, and they're still complaining and bitching about the same stuff that 2023 teenagers would be in that setting.
Oh, that's hella funny. Okay, so because Mike and the guys over at Rain Man they did, or at least Mike had done a rewatch of Willow, and he was very upset by it. He was like me, where I'm like, I remember that movie as a pretty great movie. Like, I watched it over and over and over as a kid.
I take that back. I have watched it within the past 5 years.
Okay.
And I was prepared for it to be terrible because I don't remember it being that great as a kid, to be perfectly honest with you.
I loved it. I thought it was cheesy good. I didn't think it was like the best movie ever.
I liked it, and I liked Mad Mardigan and some of the other stuff in it, and the two little pixie guys or whatever. But I went watching that movie. I was like, okay, I'm not going to try to take off all nostalgia blinders and watch it as is. And I'm like, yep, that's about how I remember the acting to be.
Okay, and the next thing, Harry Potter. I didn't know. Well, and I also didn't watch. I didn't watch Harry Potter, all of them. I've seen some of them, but there's a spell that apparently a few coworkers have been casting upon each other. I don't know what it's called. Expecto Patronus, something. I don't know. It sounds like Patron.
Expecto Patronus or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So anyways, they've been doing that, and I've been upsetting them by saying, Inspecto Patrono, and that I would like some Patron. They're not happy.
You should just look at them and say Avada Kedavra, and they'll shut them up real quick.
Avocado Kedavra.
Yeah, because that's like the death spell in the Harry Potter world.
Oh my God, yeah, they're none too pleased. The Potter fans, they are a little more psycho than Star Wars fans. So. And this is coming from a girl who has the Death Star on her butt, okay?
I'm just glad that I was a fair weather Star Wars fan, because if I really cared about it, like some of the most recent changes, I don't think I would have liked. And they even said like Mandalorian, like the newest season, it's like doing terribly, like right now on Disney Plus, like it's not pulling in very many ratings, and it's not been trending at all on Twitter. It's just like people have lost interest in it.
I have a few people asking me if I've watched it, and I have not. And I'll tell you what, I haven't gotten any spoilers either. That's how good it's not doing, because usually there's some spoilers by now.
Yeah, people are still, the only thing that people are talking about with Pedro Pascal, besides, that scene that's going around on TikTok from Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with him and Nick Cage, is The Last of Us. I need to catch up on the last few episodes of that. But
there is another thing trending right now about Pedro, and it's him eating a sandwich by himself.
Eating a sandwich, and he's just kind of like staring at the camera as he's doing it. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I'm here for it. I'm not even a huge fan of Pedro Pascal. I do not think he's hot. All of a sudden, people are thinking he's hot, and I can't get over him as Oberyn in Game of Thrones and getting his head smashed in.
Was that his peak hotness for you? Was his Oberyn Martell or whatever?
No, he was not hot at all, and he was very gay in that. Nothing wrong with gay people, but I'm not attracted to gay people. I'm attracted.
I think he just looks too babyface, and especially if you see him outside of the, like the glitz and glamour, and he's got his big thick glasses on. Yeah. I mean, he just looks like a regular dude. I don't understand what they're going crazy.
He's got money, and so people, because if it was a guy on the street, you would think he was a fucking weirdo.
Probably, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
you would say it about a lot of Hollywood guys, though. Some of them have the looks, but I mean, you get some of these guys like Armie Hammer that are sending you text messages about how they want to eat your liver, and then you're just like, okay.
Yeah.
if he wasn't rich, I would report him to the police, but I'm going to entertain this for a few more texts.
He wants to eat me out.
Yeah, that's the joke that's going around about that. It's a different connotation when he says it.
Oh yeah.
We have Pamela Mance playing Mrs. O'Grady, the unlucky farmer's wife. Not in the movie for very long. She's here for a good time, not a long time.
Oh yeah.
She played in the movie Freaked, which I hope we can cover at some point in one of these seasons. I guess it'd be creature feature season because that movie's batshit insane. It is a comedy that's got both, I believe his name's Alex Kingston, who played Bill in the Bill and Ted movies, and it's got Keanu Reeves as a dog boy in that. So I mean, they kind of reunited for this movie.
Interesting.
Let's see, and then she was also in Pee-wee's Big Holiday, the Netflix movie that came out a few years back.
No, thank you.
John Volstad plays Joe, the pawn shop owner. There's a trend in these movies where pawn shop owners are notoriously killed off. That's the one group that always gets taken out by Lubdan, the Leprechaun. Is if you own a pawn shop, you better be on the lookout.
Okay. Don't own pawn shops in B scary movies. Okay.
Yes. David Permenter plays Deputy Trippett. We'll get to that later. He gets a special award all of his own. Shay Duffin plays Daniel O'Grady, the farmer who stole the pot of gold.
Way to go, loser.
He was in Titanic, Seabiscuit, and Beowulf. So he's actually been in some big movies.
Some good ass movies.
Ken Olant plays Nathan Murphy, the contract worker. Robert High Gorman plays Alex Murphy, Nathan's 10-year-old brother. Mark Holton plays Ozzie Jones, the dim-witted friend to Nathan. And then John Sanderford plays J.D. Redding, who is Tori's father. So a synopsis: Farmer O'Grady returns from the green hills of Ireland as rich as you please. His story about catching a leprechaun and getting its pot of gold doesn't sit right with Mrs. O'Grady, but that doesn't matter when old Lep himself shows up to claim what is rightfully his. Mix in some bullshit about indestructible Velcro four-leaf clovers, and we get a decade time jump to one of the whiniest final girls we have yet to review. Will Lep take out a mentally disabled man, a kid, his hunky older brother, and our heroine? Will Jennifer Aniston's original nose seek revenge for the atrocities that the plastic surgeon is about to commit to it? And eyes taken for an eye, cringe limericks abound, and pogo sticks aren't just deadly for the user.
I'm going home. I don't feel good.
Tell me what's wrong in that, and tell me show me the lie. And all
there's no lie in it. That's why I'm feeling nauseated.
Body count: a measly 4 people.
Boo.
Mrs. O'Grady pushed downstairs and neck broken in a fall. Joe is pogoed to death.
That was my favorite one.
Yeah, that's the best kill in the movie. It really is. Deputy Trippett has his neck broken by the leprechaun, and then he has an eye plucked out later.
That was lame. The neck breaking was lame. He could have did so much.
Anytime that the leprechaun just kills somebody through use of his claws or snapping their necks, like, I'm so bored. I'm like, you have magic, dude. Make this more entertaining.
Make him explode, and he could be like a bunch of 3-leaf clovers to show everyone how unlucky they are, or something. Lucky Charms. Yeah,
well, it's funny you say that because he explodes people quite a bit, which is kind of a plot hole in the hood, but it makes for some better kills that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dan O'Grady has his body crash through the elevator ceiling. We don't know what happens to him. He's just kind of laying there bleeding, and then he just kind of mumbles something about needing a 4-leaf clover, and then how they're behind his house and patches, and which I don't know if you've ever tried looking for a 4-leaf clover, but they're not that apparent that you could just go out and find them anywhere.
You have to have the luck of the Irish.
You just have to believe. Isn't that what they say in this movie? Whenever she finds it, it's
oh
like,
my God,
you have to believe. And then, like, magically, the one in her hand is a 4-leaf clover. Not counted as a kill is the leprechaun himself, because even though a 4-leaf clover is shot into his mouth, he's thrown into a well, he's lit on fire with gasoline, and then blown up, he's still alive. So there you go.
And he's still after his Lucky Charms.
He's still after me pot of gold. Quotes: Alex holds up his slingshot to shoot the 4-leaf clover at the leprechaun. Hey, Lep, fuck you, Lucky Charms. The police deputy pulls over the leprechaun in his miniature toy car, which reminded me a lot of the scene from Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh, yes!
It was almost like they just copied it or something.
I'm so glad you said that, because this gave me that. Only Killer Clowns from Outer Space was actually good.
Yes. Deputy Trippett, say, aren't we a little young to be out this late? And then the Leprechaun responds, no, I'm 600 years old.
The fact that you sound so much like him is just disgusting.
It is sad. I'm the Leprechaun.
No!
You've got to include that at some point when you're like in post production, like that scene from Wayne's World. I love that. And then like Garth is like, stop! You're scared
like basically
me,
like me right now, which was hilarious because I didn't intend to do that.
The Leprechaun talks to himself while sitting over his pot of gold. Try as they will and try as they might, who steals me gold won't live through the night.
And it's so early in the film. They at least they let you know. They let you know what you're getting yourself into right at the beginning. Yeah,
he's going down those steps and that clunky way that he's walking, which I know that it's harder for little people to walk, but they also gave him like these shoes with like these heels that were ridiculous.
Yeah.
So when you see him like doing that weird walk down the steps, like he was on the verge of killing himself, I believe, if I remember the trivia about this movie right. Like he could barely walk in those things. The Leprechaun rips out the dead police officer's eye and puts it into his own head. An eye for an eye, me dear. And then the Leprechaun narrating from down in the flaming well. I'll not rest till I have me gold. Curse this well that me soul shall dwell till I find me magic that breaks me spell.
How many movies are we reviewing?
We're going to cover most of them, actually, but they're in snippets, so you don't have to worry about like the whole entire thing.
Okay, so here's the sitch. I'm pretty upset you didn't include the pogo stick one, because he's like, I'm sure he'll bounce right, like, oh, God, I forgot exactly what he said. He's like, he'll bounce right into shape or something like that.
Let me see. The line that I took, because I got this, actually, I saved it for the Death Holler Awards. I'm going to skip ahead since you mentioned it. This old Lep, he played one. He played pogo on his lung.
That was one of them. But as soon as he was done pogoing the guy and he was clearly dead, he's like, don't worry about him. He'll hop back into shape in no time or something like that. And I was like, what the fuck?
Wait until we discuss some of the other movies, because the kills just get ridiculous in some of the ones later on. They get pretty bad. They're almost cartoons. They're almost like that movie The Mask with Jim Carrey. They get that level of just like how extreme they get. What do you think of this movie visually?
Visually? Okay, so let me first admit that when I saw this, I was 11 years old.
Same.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're about the same age. So,
yeah.
I actually thought this movie was fucking scary. And I am so ashamed of myself. But okay, I was a kid, whatever. But anyways, going back to that, visually, it doesn't, like, some movies you'll watch and you'd be like, wow, I remember this looking a lot better when you were younger, and then you're just like, it did not hold up. I think visually it holds up pretty well. I think they did okay.
It's okay. I mean, compared to Skin Deep, like at first I was very disappointed in it because it does not stand up to like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh,
like
yeah.
when we reviewed the first one of those visuals in that movie, the way that they filmed the nighttime scenes and all that, just chef's kiss. It still holds up even on a low budget. This one you can tell is a cheap movie. Like the lighting is very natural during the day. Some of the nighttime scenes they're well lit. That's what keeps the movie from looking dirt cheap. So the nighttime scenes work. It's just that whenever you're seeing it, it looks like it even looks like a cheaper grade of film. I don't know how to describe it other than that. But it's kind of got that look to it. But it's still decent. I just don't understand. Like, I mean, the visuals, as far as like the special effects are get shoddy. I mean, and I know it's the budget, but like the pogo stick scene, like when you're watching it, they couldn't and I got it in the trivia somewhere about why they did what they did.
Yeah.
But like it slows down and he literally like jumps like twice. And then like most of it's off frame and then you cut back and there's just a little bit of blood like splashed out of the guy's neck or something. So the scene where the dad reaches into the tree stump to grab the cat that, supposedly was like playing around with Jennifer Aniston's feet. And meaning the Lep has a foot fetish, folks. He is Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
But that whenever he gets his hand bit savagely or whatever, and then pulls it back out. There's a scene where it shows the leprechaun in the base of the tree, and it looks awful. It just looked bad.
I didn't think it was terrible.
I've seen worse. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's just as far as they're you have to embrace the jankiness of them. Like if you want to like this movie at all, because it's just you're not going to get high quality.
No, you're definitely not. I will say this: even though it's very cheaply done and it's very 1990s, there is like a graphic or I guess their version of CGI of every time he appears somewhere, like when he's if he's time traveling, if you will, or whatever. And
they speed up the camera, and it looks like he's, like in one of those old Benny Hill sketches where he's traveling.
But that's funny too. I'm talking about when he appears, and it's a green lighted version of his skeleton first, and then he forms into it. I thought that was pretty decent.
I'll give it credit for this. That the actual design for that leprechaun himself is great. It's good, actually.
You're talking about the overall dressing up Warwick Davis?
Yeah, like how Warwick Davis looks like with those nasty ass teeth and the clawed hands. And
I think the outfit was a bit much. I mean, it is what a typical leprechaun looks like. I think they could have made it. They really went for it. Let's just put it that way. I think they could have, because you can change what a leprechaun looks like. You could change what a witch looks like. They don't always have to have the pointed hats and the broomsticks, and the noses. So that is one thing that I was just like, yes, he looks just like a leprechaun would look. But the fact that he looked just like a leprechaun, but still had to point it out to people and be like, look at my shoe buckles. I'm obviously a leprechaun. And he says it over and over. And it's like, how the fuck are you guys not getting that? Even if this guy isn't a real leprechaun, he's dressed like a leprechaun and he's acting like a leprechaun. Like, fucking call him a leprechaun.
Yeah, just go ahead and say it. I mean, nowadays, if you said that to somebody, of course, you'd get in trouble from the cancel police, because it's like they're a little person. You don't have to call them names, that sort of thing. But which that's actually a good idea. Somebody should make a leprechaun movie where he gets by with his kills because some do-gooder social justice warrior keeps trying to cancel anybody who says anything about him. It's like, he is a little person. He deserves our respect.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing.
And
they
then
need
that
to make
person
that
gets
movie.
killed for saying that. Yep.
We're copywriting that. That's Death Holler. If you take that story, we just want a cut of it, folks. That's all we ask for. So, but yeah, I mean, I like the look. They worked it into the story too, because they made the whole thing about his shoes. Like, he's very vain about his shoes. Like, he keeps like trying to, and he's like a shoemaker or something. So he keeps like trying to clean other people's shoes.
He's got a foot fetish.
He really does. I cracked up at that scene where Jennifer Aniston is like standing there, and I mean, that's the one scene where she was like, I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting into this Final Girl a little bit, because like she's been kind of like this standoffish, like just whiny brat, and then but you can tell that she's into the hunky guy who's like working on her dad's house or whatever. And then like whenever she starts feeling old Lep down there like kind of rubbing her legs and stuff, she's like, oh, stop it, like in that sort of way. It's like, I like what's going on. I'm just having to say this so that I don't look like I'm a total easy hoe or whatever. But then like and then it's like, okay, well, I see, and then he even brings it up later, which I love. He's like, so you were liking that I was rubbing your legs,
and you let me?
And you let me? Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. I want to see where this was filmed.
It looked like California to me. Okay. There was a lot of scenes where it looked like burnout, like it'd been like under a drought or something.
It says Valencia Studios, where Terminator 2 had recently finished production. That is so funny.
Wow.
Okay, hold on. I mean, it could be Valencia, California. Valencia Studios. No, it's not Standings. Studios. Valencia Studios. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's in Los Angeles, which is funny because how Jennifer Aniston's character was written as if you were to describe what a California girl is like.
Oh, they mentioned that she's from L.A., I think, at one
No,
point
they
in
do.
the movies. Yeah.
But
yeah.
it was so cliche that I almost thought that somebody from California didn't write this because it was just so stereotypical. And there's really not California people that are like, I mean, there's people everywhere that are like as stupid as her, but not like she was. Like it's just so funny. I was like, oh my God, this is what everyone thinks everyone from California is like, especially the women.
It's like, yeah, she's out in the sticks. She hates it. She hates like the bugs, the dirt. And her way of dealing with it's just to throw money. And it's like, I'm gonna stay in somewhere nice. Where's the checkbook? You know, that sort of thing.
Let me tell you what a real Californian would do, because I am a real California woman. I would do exactly what she did, except I wouldn't throw money to make the problem go away because I don't have money. So I would just be complaining. I don't want the bugs. This is gross. Make it go away.
The writer of the movie thought that he was being extra smart by having her also be like heavily or like vain and in her like high end shoes too, because they make a comment later in the movie like she's untied, like one of her shoes comes off or something, or the guy at the, or you know, that she's into, he removes it at the diner, and then like he mentions, he's like, you know, these are pretty fancy for, you know, and like, you know, and then brings it up to her about how her own shoes are like super expensive for that time period. So
LA Gear was heavily sponsoring this movie. I had those LA Gears, and I'll tell you what, if I had those shoes today, which I think they still make them, I would fucking be running so fucking fast, dude. I'd be fast as fuck, boy. Those shoes were badass. LA Gears. I remember they had a whole ass commercial too. They took the We Will Rock You by Queen, and they were like, LA Gear will rock you.
I don't know if they were. I don't think they ever got that popular over here because, of course, Air Jordans were the bomb whenever it came to like, you know, that time period and, you know, this part of the country. So
I can't remember what movie it was where they were pumping up their Air Jordans and it exploded in their face. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that scene, but I can't. It was. I feel like it was one of the. It wasn't a scary movie, but it was like
it was a parody film.
It was a parody movie where they did it though, because they kept pumping it up, and then it eventually exploded, and they had like almost like the goose feathers, you know, in their hair after it like blew up for some reason, like that was inside of the shoe,
some
or
kind
whatever.
Of powder or something like that. It was what it was. Did you? Okay, so wait, did you have the Air Jordans?
Oh, you kidding me? I was broke. No, I didn't have them, but every kid around here, it's like if they got one, it's like I'm automatically 100% better at playing basketball because I've got these shoes.
Okay, I wish they still had those shoes to this day because they really did pump up the inside. It was almost like one of those seat. Oh God, what is that called? The lumbar support. It's almost like lumbar support in your car if you have that, and it just offered this better support, and it just made the shoes that much more cushier, dude. They were the fucking shit. I loved them.
And when they fit tight to your feet, so they made it easier to run in them.
Oh yeah, you'll be fast as fuck in those.
The story in this movie, since we've already talked a bit about the visuals, God, it's some of the dumbest. Like, you know, I mean, you gotta just roll with it because I mean, you know, it's one thing to take the whole leprechauns and their pot of gold and all that stuff, but there's so many stupid things in this movie. Like, first of all, I know it's not part of the it's part of the story, but I guess it ties into the visuals and some other stuff. Why the hell were they painting that house like bright blue and bright red? Like, it looked like a child was like, well, a kid was painting the house, to be fair, but I mean, like that older guy was supposed to be like an expert painter or something, and like it was the shit. And I'm like, who picks this color for a house?
Oh my God, the blue and the red.
Yeah,
that was
terrible.
You know, I have no explanation for that. No explanation. And not only that, but I guess because she was just driving down in her fucking white girl Barbie dream vehicle, the Jeep Wrangler.
Yep, that Jeep.
I'm trying to think. Okay, because her dad hired those painters, and it's like,
and
I don't know.
If you look at their truck that they were driving, like, I mean, it's now I'll give them this: them having a beater truck, I mean, is appropriate and that actually fits. but anybody who is actually worth their shit when it comes to like doing any kind of like handyman work keeps his equipment at least clean. That truck was covered in as much paint as they were.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like even out here in California, a lot of the painters, they drive, I mean, maybe not as rusty of a pickup, a big old dump truck as that one was, but they definitely have like paint on their vehicles and stuff like that. And I mean, I know ours did. Ours was a pretty renowned painter, and they did an amazing job on our house, and they had a fucking car. That truck had seen better days. It had a whole ass paint job, and it wasn't the kind it needed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can imagine some paint spilling here and there, and like, you know, that would fit. But like, it was like some kid, like they got that little kid who played in the movie to just sit there and like take random strokes with different paintbrushes, like to all the parts of the vehicle. And I'm like, that's kind of dumb. Like, how'd they get it on the, like, I mean, the door itself? Why are they Why are they taking paint into the cab of the truck? Like, I don't understand it. Like, it, you know, makes no sense.
Yeah, they're just small town boys, you know.
And that's a whole other thing. Like Ozzy himself is like, I mean, he's getting the honorary Franklin Award
like, for sure.
Yes. Swallows a piece of gold. Like that whole scene's so stupid. Like he's sitting there and he goes to bite on it, and like just a second later, oops, I accidentally swallowed it, and it's like, what? Were you Pac-Man? What the fuck's wrong with you?
You know what's funny that when that happened is it's. Sometimes this, okay, so basically he was just a big kid. He was an older person with the mind of a kid. And
yes.
This is the shit that happens to kids. And as a parent, you're standing there like, you just want to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But I can 100% see this happening to Benicio. And nothing to do at all with the fact of what we recently talked about with his, you know, with his standing in life. But in general, that's just the luck of this kid. Something like that would happen to him. And I was like, I could fucking see that happening to Benny.
I mean, it's during that scene, it's just, I mean, I know they're playing it for the goofiness of it.
Yeah.
But I saw that and I'm just like, okay, this is the kind of character we're going to be sticking with for most of the movie. And then like,
that's my man and I'm sticking by him.
Yeah. And I thought for sure, I'm like, okay, he's going to get killed at some point, right?
Yeah.
Lep's going to like dig that out of his stomach. We're going to have this gruesome scene. It's like, nope, he survives.
I was kind of hoping for that. I mean, I know they were like, they want you to feel bad for him because he's kind of special needs. And this is back in 1993 when people were like, oh, well, movie people didn't care about that shit. Well, it existed. It happened in this movie. So, yes, they did care. I was hoping for that, too. I was hoping he'd get gutted. We did not get that.
I mean, that's one of my issues. And I mean, this is kind of jumping the gun to the Death Holler Awards as far as like Jennifer Aniston being a final girl. Final girls typically have to survive against the killer themselves, or at least with just one other helper who's severely hurt toward in the movie. And she had the severely hurt helper in Nathan, I believe his name, or whichever one's the older brother. I can't remember now, but it doesn't matter.
Hot painter guy.
The hot painter guy. But like, and I know that it's taboo to kill a kid in the movie, so I could see the kid making it through. But for Ozzy to also make it, it's a little that kind of makes her to where she didn't really have much agency either in the movie as far as the final girl. Like I don't feel like there's only a couple of scenes where she's really doing anything on her own. The rest of the time she's standing behind, and letting the hot painter guy like take the lead.
Oh,
and all the attacks on top of that. So she's smart in that sense. She let him take the damage, but still, I mean,
yeah.
But yeah, like story, like it just, I mean, there's just little random things throughout it. I mean, I kind of feel like it's the kind of like it just feels like they kind of threw the script together, like the writer did, and just like random scenes.
Well, they didn't. I mean, okay, here's the story. It's basically a leprechaun that wants his gold. No indication really. I mean, yes, they have like a little opening to show that he has his gold and he places a curse. You get a quick story about how he sold his soul for the gold. But other than that, like no explanation like, okay, well, this will turn you into a leprechaun if you do that or whatnot. Was he always a leprechaun? Was he just a short person? Nothing.
And they changed that with about every movie, like that origin story, by the way. So
there's all that. And then it's just basically him chasing his gold. Now, with no explanation, because typically somebody, like for instance, the pawn shop owner, he handed the gold over. That should have been it, but he still got killed. He's like, you stole my gold. It's like, you're a presumptuous little fuck, aren't you?
Yeah, he hands it back and he still kills him just because that's the way he is, you know. So
Yeah.
I guess they're setting up the fact that, you know, he just likes to kill and he just uses the gold as an excuse to do it.
I guess so. And in that case, I would have liked to have seen him planting the gold, you know, and making it that much worse, you know.
One thing, I mean, I appreciate whenever horror movies, because I absolutely hate the shit out of it if they don't do this. Like, they give weaknesses to their monsters, which I know when we get later on, there's hardly any weaknesses to, you know, like Jason, for instance. But in part 6, that director was smart. He gave him the weakness of like being in the water. That, you know, that was his weakness, which tied into how he died. So that makes sense. But this one, they come up with a 4-leaf clover thing, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
He's powerless in the presence of one. You know, its luck counterbalances his magic somehow. But that whole thing about having a 4-leaf clover somehow magically stay in one place on top of a crate for 10 years is the dumbest. I mean, I mentioned this at work, you know, to Cody, and I'm like, what was it, super glued to the damn thing? And like it was barely desiccated when it fell. Like, that thing would have rotted away long ago or been ate by something down in the, you know, like some random bug would have like munched on its remains or something that was in the basement. You know, it makes no fucking sense.
It was the luck of the Irish keeping it alive. It made no sense why that fucking leprechaun was in that crate still alive, okay? He should have fucking starved to death.
Well, they set up in later movies that he doesn't really have to eat. It's just all, which in this one, like, as soon as he gets out, he has to eat like this giant bug, and that's like, you know, like, because he's been. That's what I'm saying. Like, they play very fast and loose, and his powers, like, also that's the thing when you got movies about magic. You got to be real careful about establishing boundaries for what the magic can do. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they just didn't give two shits about it. It's like, oh, he can do this type of magic. Well, why didn't he do it, you know, the other time? Because he felt like doing something else. Okay, I guess that's how it goes. You know?
Could tell throughout the whole making of this film that they really, really tried hard to make this a good movie. Like, they intended for this to be a super good movie. Now, they got lucky. They had the luck of the Irish on their side, because what they ended up creating was a cult classic. And they did something smart, and we've talked about it. They took a holiday that hadn't been utilized yet, and they made a scary franchise out of that, which is very smart.
It is.
That's
the
way to do it. Do we have any holidays that haven't been touched yet? Easter. Do we have an Easter killing? Easter slasher.
We not that I'm aware of in the slasher sense, although I could be proven wrong if I go on the internet later and look at this. But there is technically Easter horror movie scenes. In particular, one of my favorite movies in the cheesy, you know, creature genre is Critters 2. The whole thing, it's set right around Easter, because the whole thing is that the main character's grandma goes to like get Easter eggs for like the local church, the youth group to hunt, and she goes to this one old guy who happens to have crite eggs, which are the critters, you know, like, and he, you know, he's local drunk. He just sells them to her, and like they hatch, and they end up killing the local town sheriff, who's dressed in a bunny outfit. So. They get inside the outfit and like munch him up from the inside, and so it's a very disturbing scene. If you're, I mean, like seeing the Easter Bunny just die in front of these children. But that it's you know, quintessential Easter horror, you know, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, we have most slashers. I mean, we have Halloween covered, we have Christmas covered, obviously St. Patrick's Day. You mentioned, well, kind of a B movie, but New Year's slasher.
New Year's Evil. We've got April Fool's Day coming up here shortly. I mean, that's got its own one called Graduation Day, which is technically a holiday for kids, I guess.
Happy Death Day for birthdays.
Yep.
God, and it's May, June, July. I don't know if there's a 4th of July killer. That'd be kind of cool. Exploding people with fireworks.
Oh, there is. That's the I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, son of a bitch. Well, is that when we're reviewing those?
Yeah, that's when we'll be reviewing those
All
because
right.
they happen right around the 4th of July, if I remember right. So
I'm sure there's some sort of school slasher.
yeah,
There
there's
has
all
to
kinds
be.
of high school slashers. I mean, Class of '99. There's several. I mean, Prom Night is technically. I mean, well, that's its own holiday, I guess, for kids, so it's a slasher.
Yeah,
I mean,
so this one had been untouched. So going back to Leprechaun, very smart move. They didn't. I know they intended this to be a great film. It wasn't, but it's turned into a classic. Needless to say.
it's got just enough of the cheese and just enough of the jokiness to make it last. Like if it, I don't. Part of me wonders if they went a straight horror movie with this, if it would have lasted as well as it did, because because it's one of those horror movies that you almost feel like it's in on its own joke.
Yeah.
So that allows you to laugh along with it and enjoy it for how bad it is.
I don't think it was for the first two films. And then afterwards, they're like, okay, we just need to roll with it.
Yeah, and that's why I think some of the later movies are actually better, just because they go along with the joke and they amp it up so much. They're like, yeah, we know what these movies are. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're making money.
No, if it's pulling in money, even if it's on that straight to video market, I mean, hey, do your thing, cuz that's what I say. What do you think about the acting in this movie, or the lack thereof?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think Jennifer Aniston was that bad. She clearly was a standout.
I'll tell you why she stands out in this movie. It's screen presence. Her acting is pretty bad because she barely delivers her lines, but they recognized it whenever they cast her. She's got a screen presence to her. Like you were drawn to her every time she's on screen.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I don't. It's one of those weird things. It's like you don't. I mean, you could call it charisma. You can call it, just her looks in general. Although she's not like uber hot in this. It's just, but there's just something compelling about her, and that's you're just drawn to her in the movie.
Oh yeah.
And then of course Warwick Davis hamming it up. I mean that has its own appeal, and on the opposite side with the slasher itself, but. The other people are just. I mean, even hunky guy Painter, he's just there, and then the one guy who's playing Ozzy is overacting, but it's kind of the character, so it's fine. And then the kids, he's a bad kid actor, I think. So I don't know what you thought about his acting, but
I thought he was one of the Culkin kids.
I don't think so, but
I don't think he is. I felt like I'd seen him. Did you mention what he was in prior?
No, I didn't.
No, his last name was Gorman.
Yeah. Robert High Gorman. Yeah, I feel like I've seen him in something else back in the 90s, but it was like another kid's movie of some kind.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Even today, he still kind of looks like a Culkin, which is funny. Don't tell Mom the babysitter's dead.
Yep, there you go.
There we go.
That makes sense.
I remember him. He was also in a Mel Gibson movie called Forever Young. That was actually a really good movie, but it's not a Death Holler movie, so by any means.
And you'd be stretching it to say "Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead." It's a Death Holler movie, although it is a little bit of human horror in a sense, but it's it's very black humor more than anything. So
okay, hold on. He was also in Sometimes They Come Back. That was in 1991.
Okay, well, we might be seeing him again then in that case.
Yeah, which I really like that movie. Let me see what else we have. Rookie of the Year. Holy shit. Nothing else that I can really of any other.
Which he wasn't the main actor in that, I know for sure, because that's not the kid who was the Rookie of the Year, but he was probably just like an extra or kid in that movie or something.
Yeah. So interesting. Okay.
The dad's barely in this movie to really even say
Thank
how
God.
his acting is.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was pretty terrible.
And then O'Grady was overacting like that actor was.
That was so funny with their Irish accents and everything.
Oh yeah. Music, it has that. The music services more of the comedy side in this movie.
Oh, it does.
It's more like a fantasy / like kids movie type, like whimsical type music's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it has it's fantasy, and not even fantasy horror. It's just fantasy.
Yeah, like you'd expect this music in Willow of all things.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like there were scarier moments in Willow than there was in this.
Actually, there probably was, because that movie does have some darker creatures, and it's played for the. I mean, there's bumbling humor to it, but it's played more straight than this movie is. So yeah, that's probably true. Do you want to hit the trivia up on this already?
Let's roll into trivia.
According to Warwick Davis, there were many conflicts between the production company and the distribution company, Trimark Pictures. The production wanted to make a horror movie with many gore elements similar to Friday the 13th saga or Nightmare on Elm Street, while Trimark wanted something similar to Critters or Gremlins that was horror comedy suitable for all audiences. Several versions of certain scenes and adding a mixture of gore and humor were added. The movie was originally planned as a straightforward horror film, but Davis sought to add more comedic elements. Mark Jones agreed with the tonal shift, and they shot it as a horror comedy. Several scenes had to be reshot after the producers insisted the film be made more gorier to appeal to older audiences. So everybody was fighting back and forth in this movie. Some of them wanted, more comedy than anything. The horror elements were brought out by others, so that's why it's kind of got this weird mismatch of the two of them.
Yeah, and you can tell that the movie's confused just by watching it, which is so sad, because I think if we have learned anything from Nightmare on Elm Street is that you can have gore, excessive gore, and still have Freddy one-liners, and it still be an enjoyable film.
Oh yeah, and there's a couple of scenes where they almost do that, where they play the Leprechaun like really evil, but then he's got the one-liners to kind of like emphasize the stuff. But then like the next scene, they show him getting shot flat on his ass with a shotgun, and then like it looks goofy as fuck, and it's like, okay, now we're back into the comedy side of it again. It just kind of bounces back and forth.
And I'm interested to know if it was Warwick that came up with some of the one-liners, or because he was insisting on it being a comedy horror, or if that was already written for him, because I can't see any of those one-liners being scary.
I'm pretty sure he was probably ad-libbing some of that stuff,
and I love it.
Or like coming up with it. And that the one-liners later on are what make the other movies, enjoyable. They really are. Which,
by the way, when we were talking about the acting, I didn't mention Warwick Davis, but I thought he was great. I think he did a great job. It was cheesy, and his one-liners were there because that's what it was supposed to be, or that's what he intended it to be. But I would say that he probably made the film.
Yeah, it's his performance as Leprechaun that makes these movies stand out. I mean, that's when you get later on in the series, the main characters absolutely blow, but like seeing him interact with them is the highlight of the movie. Yeah. Which is sadly, I think, what happened to Nightmare as well. It's like the characters got less and less compelling that you were dealing with. You no longer had Patricia Arquette, and some of the strong like Dream Warriors or, Nancy. You had these random ass like, teenagers that you could care less where they died or not, and it was all about seeing Freddy, play the fool, as it were, to him, with his one-liners. And
then about Warwick Davis, I don't know if you're going to get into it, if it's any trivia, but does he not like playing these characters, or does he just roll with it? Is he?
Oh, there's a line about that, I think, coming up here shortly.
Perfect. We'll address it further there.
George Lucas received a special thanks credit because Warwick Davis was actually under contract to him, and he gave Davis permission to appear in this movie.
Wow, Warwick Davis had a pimp.
Basically, Lucas is like, okay, little man, you're on the dole here, but I'll let you make this little movie.
Go make me some money, bitch.
Vice President Dan Quayle received a special thanks credit because his office sped up a working visa for British actor Warwick Davis to be able to appear in this.
Well, ain't that just sweet?
He can't spell potatoes, but he can get you that working visa. So good on old Dan Quayle. Learn your history, kids, if you don't know that reference. I know it's old, but it's out there.
Children.
Mark Jones, the writer-director, had a career in American television shows. Desiring to make a film, he decided that a low-budget horror film was his best opportunity, and that's smart because we've said several times the best way to make movie or money in Hollywood, return, is always to make some low-budget horror movies because they always make their money back or more. It's almost consistent. Jones was inspired by the Lucky Charms commercials to create a Leprechaun character. Only his twist was to turn the character into an antagonist. He was surprised there weren't any horror films dedicated to a leprechaun, and despite their dark mythology, there wasn't one that was scary. Which is smart again. He saw the void there. Jones was further influenced by films like Critters and Child's Play, which featured small antagonists. Jones brought the concept to Trimark, who were looking to get into film production and distribution.
Wow.
So I'll give him credit for that. He did his research. He's like, they always say that if you want to be successful, find some kind of area that's not being, basically fulfilled for people, and then cater to that. And, you've got a business. And he was just like, well, leprechauns are not in the movies, and there's, and they've got a dark history, so we can work with this,
Yeah. And not only that, I am unfamiliar with the dark history of leprechauns. I guess I don't know a lot about them. I just know short people like scold. St. Patrick's Day. That's it.
Basically, from my understanding, the dark history is that if you go and like the Irish lore, they're one of the Fae, and the Fae are always playing dark tricks on humans to either capture your soul or to basically remove you from this plane of existence completely. So everybody tries to make like fairies and all that, like in, modern myth as being like, oh, they're so cute. Look at Tinkerbell, that sort of thing. But like, if you go back to the Irish, lore of it, they would like get you to leave, like especially if you're a child, leave your family, go into the woods, and you never be seen again.
Yeah. Okay. And that's so funny. On a small tangent, there was this TikTok I saw. I can't remember it completely, but she kept saying fae, and I know that means basically fairy. And she goes, but I don't allow fae in our house. She didn't have any decor that was fae or anything, but she wanted a certain type of decor, and our kids liked a certain movie, and she felt like she was being the asshole because she was like so against that. And I'm like, holy shit, like how Irish are you? Like, this is 2023. Like, even as a Hispanic that's Catholic, there's certain things that we back in the day were like, no. But like my kids are like, this is cool. And I'm like, okay, like, oh, I don't allow that in this house. It's like, you're not that Mexican,
Yeah, that reminds me. There's this one TikToker. She's like a younger woman that and she's and like her older one. She used to like hold up for a split second some kind of diploma she had, and her then I don't know how she ever. I guess her only job was to ever be either like a college professor for that degree or to be an influencer doing what she did. But she got her degree in like mythology or something, on like mythological creatures, and her whole thing was like talking about it, and like her and she was the same way you're talking about. Like, she wouldn't even mention certain fae because to mention them would be to invite their presence, around you or something. It's almost like demonic in that sense.
I get it. Like my grandma Beans was like that, but it's like, no, that you're not inviting them in technically. You're just, I don't know, kind of joking about it. My dad's very superstitious about that stuff. Oh, do not let me make a Mary with the cherry comment on fucking Facebook about the Virgin Mary,
This is a hint for everybody out there though, that I heard like while like seeing those TikToks and everything. If you're out in the middle of the woods and you happen to see a ring of mushrooms, don't step inside that ring. Just don't do it, folks. Just
really?
Yeah. Supposed to be, it's like a fairy trap. It's like they whisk you away to the fae realm. Like if you step inside, like especially if they're those red and white toadstools and there's a ring of them.
Okay, yeah. But what if it's a fairy trap, meaning it's meant to trap fairies and you're not a fairy?
No, it means that it's a trap made by fairies to catch humans.
Ah, boo. So does that mean my daughter can no longer have these little mushroom-themed things? Because it's so funny that mushrooms, which my daughter is very aware of drugs and everything, kids are into, like, not taking mushrooms. I don't know how to say this without sounding like that's what it is, but they're into like mushroom artwork and stuff like that. It's big right now. And these are kids that are not taking mushrooms and not even interested. They know exactly what they do. And they're like, no, I just like the drawings and stuff like that. And it's like, as a mom, that's so hard. I'm just like,
Yeah, because that's weird. I mean, you start getting in like all these older stories that involved mushrooms, and they were clearly, I mean, like, Alice in Wonderland, and they were
Yes.
clearly referencing the psychedelic nature of the
Oh God.
mushrooms.
Oh
and
yeah. I played that game. Hey kids, eat the mushrooms. Ooh, I can see colors.
I'm twice the size I used to be. Now I'm shrunk to the size of a mouse. No,
Can you imagine the
no,
kids
you're not.
coming
you
home?
Just think you are.
The kids coming home from my daughter's birthday, like, yeah, Mom, we were playing this game and we got to eat mushrooms, and yeah, I saw this color. Like,
Oh my God.
I promised you it was a video game and we didn't really take mushrooms. Okay, off of the Fae.
Warwick Davis performed most of his own stunts, mainly because it was challenging to find a stunt double that matched his size.
Oh, they should have called me.
Oh, God. Unfortunately, during filming, he suffered a lung infection, and the production was filmed with a double, with Davis dubbing over the lines in post after he was healed. The taller stunt double in the bear trap scene was Deep Roy, who was in, some later movies like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the, Johnny Depp version. Despite this, he was the only actor who didn't get hurt when it came to stunts.
Wow.
So, applying the Leprechaun makeup to Warwick Davis took 3 hours. It always seems to take 3 hours for this makeup,
that's a magical
consistently.
Number.
And taking it off took another 40 minutes. Davis described the experience as not a pleasant sensation. That's always said by these actors too.
Yeah.
And to pass the time while the makeup was being applied, Davis said he had bizarre conversations with Gabriel Bartalos, with whom he got along with well. Davis was conscious of the need to stay relaxed and not move, and he channeled his confidence that the makeup effects were properly applied into his acting.
Wow. I mean, you have to have a great relationship with your makeup artist. Could you imagine getting your makeup done by somebody you fucking loathe?
Oh, yeah. And you're sitting there for 3 hours and they're just droning on and on about bullshit. And it's like, no, I don't care about, your significant other and your trials and tribulations with them. Can you please just get this the fuck over with so I can do my damn job? I recently watched, this is a tangent, but it's about the makeup part, the Pennywise, the making of it. And, they kind of go through, it's a documentary just about that movie, and God bless him, Tim Curry's on there. Like, it was filmed in recent years, and of course he's had some health issues. Almost looks like a stroke. I don't really know what's going on with him. He can barely move his mouth when he talks and stuff.
Yeah,
but he's still as witty as he ever was.
Oh my God.
And he's talking about they were talking about whenever they were casting him as Pennywise, they were going to apply all this shit to his face. And he told them, after we discussed on the lost episode, folks, about Legend, how terrible it was for him whenever he was getting all that applied to him. And he looked at him, he said, "You're going to have to get somebody else if that's what you want." He said, "I will come in if you will do a quick job that just barely covers my face with clown makeup," because he said, "Are you hiring me because, you want Tim Curry, or you want my facial expressions and the way I act, or do you want somebody just to be covered up in a bunch of makeup?" Because he said, "You get anybody to do that, but if you want Tim Curry and you want to see my face, it's got to be, seen. You can't cover it up with a bunch of stuff for me to be able to act." And they thought about it and they were like, "You're right. We want Tim Curry." And that's made that, and that movie is all about him. When you go back and watch it, if it wasn't him with the way that he does his, facial, things and his facial acting and the particular way that he delivers the lines, that Pennywise would have never caught on the way that he did.
Well, yeah. And not only that, but think about it. It's exactly what that was, because he was made to look like a typical clown would in the 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
Oh wait, this was 90s, wasn't it? But
it was in the 90s, but it was based on Bozo the Clown. So yeah, basically 70s and 80s.
Okay, so and then not only that, but they were able to get into the effects when they had it come out with his teeth and his eyes and everything. They were able to do a little bit more with that, and I think it was more effective because it was clowns are already kind of scary. They're just creepy as it is. I mean, come on, John Wayne Gacy was already a thing back then. Oh
yeah, and that was one of the things that people always tie to it is that whole thing. But I just think that's such a valid point that he made. It's if you're hiring me for my acting ability, you've got to be able to see my face, or I can't play this character the way you want me to play it.
Yeah.
And that was the whole other thing they brought up too. They hired him and they just said, "You do what you think is best for the character." So that was all Tim Curry in that movie.
You do you, boo boo.
I mean, that shows you what a good actor brings to the and again, Warwick Davis. I mean, to his credit, I mean, he was covered up, but I mean, it's his acting that made the character stand out.
Yeah.
Tony Cox, one of Warwick Davis's other stunt doubles, later appeared in Leprechaun 2. Deep Roy later appeared in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as I said, and then Roy broke his wrist when he punched through the truck window in one of the scenes of this movie.
Okay. What kind of a window truck? What kind of a windshield? Don't they have like sugar glass that they do?
They usually have sugar glass, but sometimes, from what I've heard, it doesn't break as easily as it should. And if you really want it to break and you don't want the risk of any kind of damage to the stunt actor, there's another type of glass that they can use. It's not even, but it's so flimsy that they don't like using it unless they have to. But like even sugar glass is like dense enough to where it can be a problem in some scenes.
Good God.
Warwick Davis and Mark Holton are the only people in this movie that have been in another Leprechaun movie. When casting Jennifer Aniston, she almost didn't get the role as the executives wanted a blonde valley girl. Director Mark Jones recognized that Aniston had star power, and that was smart of him.
Yes.
The moment he saw her audition, but he had to fight to get her the part. Eventually, they agreed to cast when Jones promised to have Aniston bleach her hair, which never happened. So they agreed to hire her, but it's like she's got to bleach her hair, and then it's like, fuck it, we're not going to do that anyway.
She wasn't even a deep brunette, so.
Yeah, Jones said that she was charming and easy to work with. Warwick Davis also said that she had a lot of ambition and he knew that she would be a breakout star someday.
She definitely had that. Like watching her, I was like, okay. Yes, it's not great acting. This is a B film by any standard, but she definitely had something. You called it screen presence. There wasn't, you said she didn't deliver her lines great, but I'm like, there wasn't really anything to deliver. They didn't give her a lot to her character.
There wasn't, but like some of the scenes, like where she's supposed to be, and I don't know if it's, and this is all based on the director too. So the director's at fault for this. But some of the lines where she's supposed to be, like horrified at what she's seeing, it just comes off more as a bratty, like whine response to it, as opposed to like actual fear. And again, that's the director. If he wanted more out of her in that scene, he could have just said, hey, let's redo that and act more afraid. But like what we got is literally her just like, it's almost like a what the fuck as opposed to like, oh my God, that difference in the reaction.
I'm letting you know the scene of her hiding in the back of the cop car in the first film and she's begging him to go away. 100%. When we meet up in Orlando for our Hollywood Horror Nights or Halloween Horror Nights, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see me ducking and screaming and begging for the whole thing to stop. And you're going to be very disappointed. And I'm just letting you know that now, because if I set you up now, at least you know what you're getting into when you walk into a house with me. I feel bad for the missus more than anything. It's like, what is this? What is she doing?
We laugh at people that do that, so you'll provide us amusement.
Good entertainment. Just walk behind me. Me and little Lucifine are usually in the front anyway, so.
The scene where Alex talks to Ozzy about using brain operation to make him smarter was a scene Trimark wanted to cut out, feeling it was disrespectful to the mentally disabled. The director felt it's an innocent idea that shows the love between these two friends, with Alex being a child but trying to learn to be an adult, but still has the mindset of a child like Ozzy, which is why the two would bond as friends in the film.
That made sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, kids, and that's something that kills me too about modern cinema. Kids can be cruel. I mean, and they bag on each other if they're friends. So, I mean, that actually seems more realistic that he would say something like that.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but they also, I didn't feel like he was talking shit. I thought for a minute that he actually believed it, but there is a scene where he's like, well, he goes, I know that surgery doesn't exist, but he doesn't know that, Yeah.
Well, yeah. Is he saying that to make his friend feel better or something? Is where you're coming from at that point.
Yeah. I don't know what he thought that money was going to do for them, but I think he thought more than anything that money would probably give them a better life than what they had currently.
Oh yeah. I mean, and
well, fucking what's his name though? Ozzy was like, I can buy narcotics weekly. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, how mentally damaged are you? This sounds
Yes.
like something just a crackhead would say on a random Tuesday
Yeah.
at the gas station. When it came to casting, everybody wanted a little person to play the Leprechaun, but someone asked director Mark Jones about Warwick Davis, hot off his success with Willow in '88. Jones didn't think such an accomplished actor would be interested in starring in his low-budget horror film. Eventually, he took the chance and sent the script to his home in England. Davis read the script and was delighted to play a villain. As an actor, he was going through dark times and hadn't worked in 7 or 8 months and was at a point where he wasn't sure if he wanted to continue acting. Shortly after receiving the script, his newborn son passed away, and he felt it would be therapeutic for him and his wife, and he really wanted to express his dark side when creating his take on the character as his first villain role.
That's
tragic
sad.
that he had to go through all that.
I know. Dang, I didn't know he was married.
Yeah, I don't know if she's, a little person as well, or, or not. I don't know much about his personal life, to be honest. But when I first read that, I was like, damn, that fucking sucks. I mean, but if it was therapeutic for him to play this character, then at least that helped in some sense.
He is married to a little woman. I don't know how tall Warwick Davis is, but they do have a small family. His wife is taller than him. I'm gonna guess he's like 3'1". She looks to be about 4'1".
Okay.
This is my guesstimation, and they have a daughter who looks like she's in her teens, wearing gotta be at least 6-inch heels, and she looks to be 3'11". And then their son is but a wee man, and I don't know if he stayed that way. They're all almost about the same height now. Warwick being not the shortest, his son actually being the shortest. His son is his twin. Holy shit. His daughter looks Hispanic. Look at me with all the deets. See, you ask and you will receive.
Well, I appreciate that. That gives us a little bit of insight to the.
Oh my God. His wife, guess how tall she is?
How tall?
4'1". I was
exactly
fucking
what you
on
said.
it.
You
yes.
were 100% on that.
It was on our IMDb. I scrolled down a little bit, which is so funny. Way to go, me. Now I got to find out how tall Warwick Davis is. But anyways, the funniest thing that shows up on her IMDb on just Google's front page is that she was in a movie called Hunky Sausages.
Hunky Sausages. I feel slightly offended by that, and also slightly hungry, I guess. So there you go.
Warwick Davis is 3'6", so I was off by 5 inches.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, he felt that the shoes were essential to the character. The huge platforms were a challenge to walk in, like I said earlier, but once he got it down, they gave him a distinctive gait. Davis said the shoes did more to get him in the character than even the makeup.
Wow.
Because of this, he insisted on having them in every Leprechaun movie he starred in.
Amazing. Yeah, hey, if you know something good when you got it.
Well, and that's kind of like how, the shoes gave him that weird, way of walking that we talked about, like how Freddy's got a weird way of walking, but because how the glove makes him, slump down on one side because of the weight. So it's kind of leaning into, the makeup and stuff like that, and the costuming.
I fucking love that.
The hospital used in the movie was also in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch from '82.
Okay, I thought I recognized it. Honestly. And isn't Season of the Witch my favorite one?
We've not got there yet.
I thought that I've told you in the past. I know we haven't watched them yet.
Maybe. So you like the one that has Tom Atkins going around watching little kids get turned into bugs and snakes from their...
It's okay. Yeah. Maybe it's not my favorite. I need to recant right now because people will take that to heart and be like, when we watch it, be like, oh, well, you said it's the one I remember the most.
I will go ahead and say right now that the first one in the series is my favorite, and varying degrees of success from the others, but 3 is the next best sequel. And yes, I understand that all the haters that love Michael Myers can come at me because, Michael was best in part 1, and even Carpenter will admit that. And then every other movie after that is some, varying degrees of how shitty is Michael in this one. So, and that one, that one's good because it's a different concept to me. When the leprechaun hops over on a pogo stick, it is played in slow motion. This is because the stunt double using it was only able to get 2 jumps in because it was hard to operate on set. So the scene was slowed down to make it look like more. The studio also ordered insert shots to make the scene gorier.
This is a good scene. I liked it.
Yeah,
it wasn't great. It worked.
I like whenever they do interesting kills in these movies.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, especially after the Scream, franchise coverage, I got so tired of just random stabs. they work when they're brutal, but at the same time, change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
During pre-production, the execs at Trimark weren't sure if they wanted Mark Jones to direct. They even offered him money to step down as the director, but he turned down their offer, saying that the only reason he wrote the script was to direct it. He set out to prove himself. He had the kitchen chase scenes already storyboarded and showed it to Trimark. The studio was impressed and gave him the job, but felt like they would get rid of him if they didn't like the dailies 2 days in a row.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was always under the gun from Trimark on this one.
Damn, no pressure.
The script Warwick Davis read was the more comedic drafts Mark Jones had written. Davis said it was like a scary movie for a PG-13 audience. He shaped his portrayal of the character around this idea and played up the comedy in his performance. He was disappointed the film ended up being rated R. He said it was difficult to change his performance in reshoots. Had he known it was rated R from the start, he would have portrayed the character differently.
I have to agree. That is disappointing when you're going for one thing, you don't get it anyways, especially in horror films, because it's like, well, fuck, we could have just fucking took this to the limit then.
Yeah, and we've heard that several times over. Like, I mean, they aimed for the R, had to cut back a bunch of stuff to even get like the PG-13, and then whenever they find out later they still didn't get the PG-13 because they had some random bullshit. It's like, well, if I'd known that and I was going to get the R from to begin with, I would have just laid into everything, that much more.
Yeah.
Throughout the film, there are many shots that lingers on close-ups of the character's shoes. Mm-hmm. This is to give us the Leprechaun's point of view, who's obsessed with them.
Yes, and not only that, he's also shorter. You're getting that shorter person view.
Yeah. That I call it the crack cam, because going back to Critters, there's a lot of scenes where it's like you're in the eye view, like the point of view of the critters. It's like trying to sneak up on somebody, which I love.
Yeah.
With each character having individual shoes that would match their personality. Tori with the LA Fear sneakers.
LA Gear.
Well, somebody put fear on the whole IMDb thing.
That's so funny. No, I know.
They should have called them LA Fears.
That would have been sick. I wonder if they are now, because I was looking at them and I saw LA Gear because they were the exact ones that I had. But they could have said LA Fear.
They could have, honestly. Ozzy's Chuck Taylor All-Stars, and Alex's Reebok. All of these, none of these actually sponsored the movie, but they all got special thanks in the credits.
Oh my God.
In recent years, there's been a lot of misinformation about the scene where the leprechaun eats a cereal called Lucky Clovers. It has been said that the box was originally supposed to be Lucky Charms, but the company responsible for the brand was so upset that that he spit their cereal out that they demanded to have the brand removed from the film. Many believe that what Alex says at the end was used as a retort from the director, but none of this is true, however, as the box of cereal was always intended to be an off-brand parody, and that the Lucky Charms line was used in the original 88 script. Despite this, the studio hated the line and wanted it cut, but the director wanted it kept as a crowd-pleasing moment. And I thought it was a good line. It's like, the whole thing about Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Lucky Charms.
I loved it. A slight change of topic, going backwards again to the LA Gear. It did say LA Gear, so it was just probably fat-fingered in IMDb. But I sent you a photo, and those were the shoes I had. But does this not look like a kid walking? I sent it into our...
Let me look here. I just now trying to get to load up. Yes, that's...
I mean, it's her, and she probably just has really small feet. But I was like, is this a kid that's in the movie all of a sudden? Then I was like, oh, wait, that's Jennifer Aniston. Oh, wait,
and it's probably just the LA Gears themselves, but the way that they're so like comically large, like around her foot, it does look more like a kid in those shoes than it would be her.
If I had those, I'd be running fast as fuck, okay? See how fast I can run in my shoes? I'll send you guys a video, too.
You can post it on TikTok sometime. You can, just reenact the scene from the Leprechaun. Just have Benny or somebody behind you going, "I'm the Leprechaun."
I can't. He's taller than me now. I have to be the Leprechaun. Maybe little Lucifina. She's still the shorter one. So.
During the scene where the leprechaun cleans the shoes, there was supposed to be a scene where he makes a Dagwood sandwich out of motor oil and nails as an homage to Scooby-Doo, but the studio had the scene cut. That just makes no sense to me
I'm glad they
whatsoever.
did that. And you know what? I am so happy they kept the shoe cleaning scene over making a sandwich. That was hilarious.
Yeah, and then they come back and like Jennifer Aniston's like looks like, who the fuck did this? What's going on? You know?
Yeah.
Trimark wanted to remove the shoe throwing scene, but the director fought hard to keep it in.
Good job.
Got to get those chanclas in there anytime we can. When John Sandiford was hired, it was mostly because of his beard. Once he showed up on set, he shaved before shooting, to which the director was surprised by. The beard we see on screen had to be created with prosthetic makeup effects. So the guy, it's like what we talked about, My Bloody Valentine, where they scouted locations, found the perfect mine because it looked this huge.
Yeah.
The town cleaned it up, and then they'd go back in there and dirty it back up again, which cost a bunch of the budget. Same thing with this. It's like, I like your beard, dude. You're hired. And then he shows up clean shaven. It's like, what the fuck?
Son of a bitch.
Although the female lead, Jennifer Aniston, denies the film, she held negotiations with Trimark Pictures to make the sequel, where one of the scripts followed on how the leprechaun would seek revenge on Tori Redding by tricking her into marrying him. Aniston was offered $25,000 but refused to reprise her character because she was focused on the Friends series that was starting its broadcast. So for Leprechaun 2, her character was replaced.
So she's trying to is she embarrassed by this film?
Oh, yes. We'll get into that here in a second. Her and Warwick Davis have fights because of this movie. Because
good. I'm glad
she
he's
shits
fighting
on
her.
it so much.
She can fuck off.
Writer-director Mark Jones came up with a mythology that the only way to kill a leprechaun was with a four-leaf clover. He wanted it to be like a wooden stake for vampires, and he was really disappointed that his mythology didn't carry over in the sequels, and it does not. They changed it in every fucking movie.
I would be too, because I think that's a great way, because maybe it's not so much the way to kill him. Obviously, it's a way to disable him pretty well and keep him trapped, because you can press a four-leaf clover and it'll hold. Like, you can save one. I know my grandma used to do that. If we found one, she would press it in the books, and although it's not like it's going to be a fresh four-leaf clover, it still look like a four-leaf clover, I think that was great mythology, and not only that, they're not easy to find.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting and smart ideas in the movie. I mean, as far as like the actual weaknesses that the leprechaun has, because like you said, that's exactly right. I mean, even though I feel like it's a stupid scene in the movie where all the protagonists just suddenly like stopping everything just to try to find one in the backyard. It is like super hard to so if you have one, like, you've got to hold on to it for dear life,
Yeah, so I mean, it works, and I don't know. It doesn't make it to where you could just shoot somebody, because that's boring, And it matches the theme. It's St. Patrick's Day. It's Luck of the Irish. It's fucking four-leaf clovers. It's fucking leprechauns. Okay.
I just imagine it being an episode of Supernatural. Just take whatever and just put it into a shotgun shell.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
Pretty much.
When the leprechaun's hand pokes through the phone, it was hugely compared to a similar scene in Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy's tongue. And then the director Mark Jones said it was never intended to be an homage to that scene. The effect was created using a foam rubber hand that Gabriel Bartalos operated with a cable off screen. He can say that, but when I watched that scene, I watched it after I read this. It totally looks like that scene.
Oh,
where
yeah.
Nancy's like talking on the phone and the tongue comes out of the bottom of the receiver.
Fucking Freddy and his tongue. I swear to God. Now it's Leppy in his hand.
Despite the leprechaun not having an official name in the series, in the original script, the character was named Basil.
No, thank you.
At one point, there was going to be an old circus wagon with a name on it, but it was never shot. Director Mark Jones wished he would have consulted the character on the name for the marquee value, although in the comics he was named Lubdan, which fans prefer to call him, but they aren't canon to the series. So that's why you don't know his names, because it's in the comic book series that he was called Lubdan.
Okay, so is Lubdan part of the Legend series?
Yeah, it's the Lost Legends, as it were, the non-canon. Kathleen Kennedy would probably fuck this series up
Oh,
despite how
she
bad it is
would.
to begin with.
He would be very Mr. Lep would be very woke. He would probably be black. He would
Yeah,
be
he is redheaded, so he would get replaced.
Yes, he would be 6'1". And he'd have Air Jordans.
And somebody be trying to steal his Air Jordans.
Yeah, somebody be stealing his or Air Force Ones, whichever, you know.
Gabriel Bartolos designed the look of the Leprechaun to evolve in 3 stages throughout the movie. The first stage gave him a friendlier appearance, with Davis's features like a rounded nose and chin and smaller ears. The second stage gave him more hook nose, pointier chin, sharper teeth, and prominent wrinkles. The third and final added green locks of mold growing on his face and longer hair. One alternative design that was never used gave him elongated, sharp teeth, longer ears, and black soulless eyes.
I mean, although stage 3 would be kind of cool, I think he looked good not having black soulless eyes because he was just as scary.
Yeah, I think that it's his eyes actually make him scarier.
Yeah.
And especially in some of the later movies, even though he's playing it like comedy, it's just he's got like a maniacal, like homicidal look to him or something, you know?
Yeah.
During the filming, the protagonist, Jennifer Aniston, and the antagonist, Warwick Davis, got along very well and had good chemistry off camera. Aniston was happy to work with Warwick. Currently, both have tense relationship because every time Jennifer Aniston denigrates or denies the film, Davis usually responds to her. In a television program, Davis even said that Aniston's annoyance was seeing the movie and seeing herself without so many facial surgeries and rhinoplasty.
Ooh.
That's a burn,
He
folks.
is. She's going to need some plastic surgery for that burn.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's well-deserved because I think it is so disrespectful for any star. I don't understand how any accomplished star and whatever, like, it's not even being humble. It's just flat out being rude. And it's like, you have to acknowledge where you came from. Just like somebody who makes it in the world and they become successful and they're like, my parents didn't have any money and, we were on government assistance and blah, blah, blah. And I drank powdered milk and now look at me, and it's not like, oh, look at me now I'm greater. It's like, I worked hard for this. And it's like, you can't admit that you had to start somewhere. You were just always this amazing actress and always had a wonderful nose. Like, acknowledge that shit. Be humble,
If you want a classy example of that, Jamie Lee Curtis, who recently won the Oscar, she, in her speech, she gave credit to all of the fans that stuck with her through all the years that she was just a cult actress, for Halloween and some of the original horror movies she was in, like The Fog, and acknowledged that it was because of them and their enthusiasm that, kept her, in the business and kept her, employed to the point where she eventually got in a film that won her an Oscar. So
she even admits that she's a Nepo baby.
Yeah. She brings it up.
And you know what? It's like she could be ashamed of that. She could huddle in a corner or she could deny it. Denial is a river that runs in Egypt, folks. But, I mean, she doesn't. She just probably says, hey, this is where I started and it wasn't supposed to be shit, but now look at me,
Yeah,
she's
and I mean,
well.
and she's not shitting on the legacy of what she was doing. It's, I agree with you on the Aniston. It's just ridiculous that she's got to be that way about it because, I mean, she's not considering, the other people that filmed the movie, whenever she's throwing that hate out there, it's like, this was a shit movie. And it's like, oh, okay, just totally ignore all your, co-stars in the movie and throw them under the bus.
And the directors that gave you an opportunity when they didn't have to.
The director, the producers, I mean, everybody involved. I mean, the production crew, all the people that works on a movie. I mean, you're just throwing them all under the bus in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, and maybe it'd be different for me if I ever had that opportunity. I don't think I'd be embarrassed of where it came from. I'd be like, it wasn't the greatest, but I had fun and it got me started and it was an experience and we all need experience in our jobs. You don't start out just being amazing,
If she wanted to be classy about it, the way to address it is say, I feel like I was terrible in that movie and I can't watch it anymore, but I appreciate what, it's, got me to start, and that's the way you address that.
Oh, 100%.
The scene where the leprechaun rides on a bicycle originally had him to remain under the truck. Then when the truck leaves, he gets run over and buried in the dirt with the tire tracks printed over his body. They filmed the stunt with Warwick Davis buried underground with a tube to breathe through, but unfortunately the studio cut the scene because they thought it was too cartoony.
Lame.
They land the cartoony later on, and it's so much better, so they should have kept it.
They should have kept it. Yeah, I mean, I was like, there's quite a few. I mean, come on, the skating scene, the going through the fence.
Yeah, and it leaves a complete like outline of his like the body that just like in a cartoon, like that right there by itself. I thought the same thing when I saw that.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, if you want to talk about cartoony, that was cartoony. This would have been awesome.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that it's them, wanting more of a horror film, and then it's that whole thing. I just wish that they could have got together and figured out what tone they wanted with the movie, because I think it would have been better overall if they would have went one way or the other with it. Vidmark released the movie on VHS in April of '93. It sold over 100,000 copies. The following year, Jennifer Aniston had become a household name with the premiere of Friends in '94. Due in part to her success, the movie became a popular video rental in the '90s. So much so that they started releasing this movie. They started putting on it with Jennifer Aniston from Friends.
Oh, I bet you she loved that.
Yeah. Similar to Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, Leprechaun's face is hidden in the shadows at the start of the film, leaving audiences to wait in anticipation for the full reveal of the character, which you don't get until you have him sitting there in that chair when Mrs. O'Grady first walks in on him, and then he finally, comes in the light long enough to see his face.
I will admit that I liked that.
When the last shot had Leprechaun's voiceover at the end of the movie, Warwick Davis was happy to do the voiceover because he knew it hinted at a sequel, and he was hoping that he would get to play the Leprechaun again, which he did multiple times, folks.
And I love that about him. I love that he was, that's an actor. And look at if people, what is Jennifer Aniston going to say? Oh, well, he was lucky to have that role. It was made for him because he's a short man. That's disrespectful. I bet you that's what she's thinking, though.
They'd get her canceled real quick if she tried that shit.
Yeah, and it's so it is kind of disrespectful for her to be like, she doesn't have to agree to anything, but she's being a snot. She's being the actress that she was in this film,
She's being that character. It's like, I'm from LA. I'm gonna whine about this. When creating the effect that the leprechaun is melting from the inside, Warwick Davis had to wear an acrylic jawbone and had several tubes of super glued to his body. Slime and cigar smoke were blown through the tubes to create the illusion. Then the animatronic puppet was created by Davis himself from within that well, or was operated by Davis himself. The director, Mark Jones, wished that he had made the well look older and more weathered.
I like that scene. I think it was for the budget they had, which we always say you have to get creative. I think they did a great job.
Going back on the visuals, that now that I remember that scene, thinking about it, yes, that was a good use of practical effects. That worked for them.
Yeah, I wonder, super glued to him though, like super glued to his body, or hopefully super glued to a shirt or something. Because damn,
God, I hope it was to some kind of bodysuit they had on him.
Yeah,
I mean that makes no sense otherwise.
Yeah,
I mean they could have reused super glue remover, but even with that, you're still talking about it's going to be very irritating to the skin, and everything else feels directly to the body that way.
Yeah.
Death Holler awards for this movie. What do we think about Tori Rating as a final girl?
Pass.
Short answer, yes. I agree with that statement. Too whiny, not enough agency against the bad guy. I mean, she does, have toward the end a little bit step it up, but I still feel like she held more on to having the hunky painter do the work for her than as opposed to. I mean, you could probably argue that a little bit about the final girl in Friday the 13th Part 6, because it was Tommy Jarvis that did most of the work in that one, but she did bring Jarvis back from basically death at the end of the movie, so she served a purpose in that sense. Aniston never really had, because she had 3 other people around her at all times. I mean,
yeah,
it's and then her just being so damn whiny. The only thing I'll give her credit for is I did enjoy that scene. You know, and you can say whatever you want to, the reason why I enjoyed it, but like her getting so into the fact that she was having her legs rubbed, because it was just like it showed a little bit how cheeky, you know, and like, you know, her character was definitely not a prude. Like, I mean, she was thinking about some stuff in that scene. So
yeah. Her acting wasn't terrible, but she just wasn't written as a final girl. I don't know what she was written, just she was supposed to be the bimbo.
Yeah, in the movie, she's never really portrayed as like the smartest character, which is another trait that most final girls have. They're very inventive, and they you know, even like and they're very quick thinking in like emergency situations. I feel like she was always. I mean, there was a couple times where she's like, well, you know, let's call 911 for so-and-so. And of course, the phone line was cut and all that. So she showed a little bit of drive in that sense, but she never really like went out of her way to, you know, try to outthink, you know, the bad guy, or try to come up with a way to get them out of the situation they were in.
Yeah.
What about the Leprechaun? What do we think about him as a slasher?
I love him. I think he's like, it was so smart of them to create him, and Warwick Davis. They were very lucky to have gotten him. It sucks at a pretty low time, you know. I kind of wonder if he would have taken it if he was not going through what he went through. I feel like he would have, you know. But I'm glad he took the chance, and I'm glad that the directors did too, and saying, hey, you know, let's see. Worst he's gonna say is no.
And this is sad too, but I've seen some scenes from the recent Willow TV show, and Warwick Davis does a much better job getting into the character and conveying the character in the Leprechaun series than he ever did in that new Willow series. Yeah. It's like he's not there, you know. He just, it's like he's checked out, like he's just collecting a paycheck in the Willow series. And you can tell that he's having fun in this, which is the main thing. Like you get the same vibe from, you know, Robert Englund as you do from Warwick Davis, you know, in that way.
Well, and I don't know what Warwick Davis, if he has a disease or syndrome that has caused him to be his height. But there's usually sometimes when they have these, you know, syndromes, they don't typically live long. Sometimes. Yeah,
that's you're talking about like the Gary Coleman effect, where he had like kidney disease because his like he didn't fully develop, and like it was both a combination of his kidney disease led to his stunted growth, but also like his stunted kidneys, you know, like also led to him having a premature death, I believe, if I remember right.
And that's what I'm kind of getting at, is if that's the case. He's 53 years old, so it's possible he's feeling a lot of aches and pains that.
Oh yeah, they do. I mean, at like an earlier age, just because of their body, the way that their body's shaped and the way that they have to walk to account for it. Because a lot of them have like curved spines, especially because of how their, you know, how the growth was.
Oh my God, I cannot pronounce this. I have to send this to you. And hopefully your internet
was it spina bifida or something, or
no, I know how to pronounce that. Wow, very bold of you to assume I can't say that. No, I'm just kidding. It's a lot of words. It's a lot of adult words, and I need an adultier adult. And you're older than me by like 2 weeks.
Spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia congenita.
Thank you. It's a bone disorder, basically. In a nutshell, it's a bone disorder. So he probably is feeling a lot of fucking aches and pains, and he might be breaking down. I don't know. He doesn't talk about his health, so I don't want to assume. But that's what I'm doing. I'm just assuming that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a pretty easy assumption to make. I mean, you know, given, and I mean, he has suffered some injuries too throughout the years, because just like we mentioned, a lot of times whenever you're that size of an actor, you don't really have the luxury of having a bunch of stuntmen or, you know, stunt women to fill in for you. So you got to kind of, you know, roll the punches, as it were, and you get injured, you know, on set.
Yeah, I was talking to Noah actually, just about a week ago, roughly, about how I'm really small, but I have like a lot of hip problems. And I used to be a dancer back in the day. Cheer. I did some ballet. I did jazz. I did a couple of things, but not as rigorous a dancer as most women who carry it into adulthood. I didn't do that. And I was telling him about when I met why can't I think of the actress right now? She plays the main witch in Supernatural. The beautiful redhead.
You're talking about I can't remember her name either. It's Rowena's the character.
Rowena,
that she
yes.
plays. Yeah.
I met her. She was discussing about how she used to be a dancer and she's having hip problems. And I said, is this something I've noticed a lot of smaller women coming out with issues with their bones in their hips? But I was like, I would think it would be the opposite. I would think that would be the taller people, women and men included, because just over 6 foot, maybe even taller than that have issues just because they're so tall and lanky, you know?
Ruth Cannell.
There we go. Yes. That's who I met. But anyways, is that a thing that you're aware of as smaller people? Do we just have bone problems?
I mean, you're talking about there's the potential that you could have damaged something when you were dancing, didn't realize it because when you're younger, you like bounce back from stuff instantly. And it's only years later that, those little micro tears like developed in like arthritis or tendonitis or whatever they are.
Yeah, she has arthritis. There we go.
Of course, all of us go through, start having more arthritis pains. It's like our individual joint starts wearing down. I mean, I've got like my left knee is that way because there was a time period right before I had my growth spurt that I stepped on a rusty nail and like one of my feet almost had to be amputated. It got that bad. So like I was laid up for a good long while I was basically growing. And so one leg, it's not huge, but one leg grew slightly shorter, slightly longer than the other one, just because the other one the one that I was laying off of is longer than the other one just because it, didn't have that compression all the time on it, like the one that had to be stood on.
Yeah.
And so that creates like a little bit of a gait abnormality. And whenever I walk a lot, that one knee on that side with the longer leg where it's compensating, it gets to aching more. So
that makes sense.
It's all kinds of weird stuff like that. It's just minor, gait changes will cause, you to have, because you get to the point where like there's no cushion left there anymore. It's just bone on bone at a point. So
yeah, well, I don't know. I guess I'm not nearly as short as Warwick Davis, but I'm just like, I guarantee you he's having bone issues considering he has a bone disorder.
Especially if you look at how little people walk in a lot of cases, because you can tell that it's more of like a loping walk because of how their body's shaped, and that's going to cause their hips, if nothing else, to be really bad inflamed at a certain point.
Yeah, that was a tangent.
The best kill, pogo stick.
Oh yeah, easy. I mean, and I will. By the way, if anyone's worried, and I don't know if I have yet, but if I don't disagree with what Reverend puts down for death scenes or boobs or anything, I will absolutely say it, but I cannot argue this one at all. That was my favorite from the get-go. I was like, oh, this is it. There is no other. I was in love.
Had a good line after it, which I thought in there is the best quote. This old Leppy played one. He played pogo on his lung,
God.
The best scream, I don't really know. I guess Tori, when you was talking about she was in the back seat, and then like, worried about but there's really nobody in this movie that screams a whole lot. So
she definitely has the most screams. I mean, the kid had some good screaming, like, get him off of me, get him off of me. But
you're right on that sense.
Yeah, Tori had more, so I'm going to go with hers.
But she technically had more complaining than screaming.
Yeah.
Best side character, Alex, I guess. The little kid, he at least has that good line about arms.
Yeah, he is the best side character for sure.
How annoying is the Doom Prophet? That is Ozzy, and since he gets the honorary Franklin Award, he's very fucking annoying.
Yes.
I mean, but he is the one that's constantly telling him. I think there's even a line where he's like, he's coming back. If he don't kill the rest of you, he's for sure going to kill me. You know,
what's kind of funny though is that it was smart of them to make the character the way he was, because they're like, oh, that's just our Ozzy, and nobody was believing him, and he was telling the truth.
even when he calls the cops up, and
Yes.
then that local sheriff, who's a character actor I've seen in a ton of stuff, you know, he's just sitting there and, you know, he's smoking that cigarette and he's just like, what is it this time? Aliens?
Yes.
He's like old Ozzy, you know.
That's Ozzy. And Ozzy for sure was on the spectrum. He's on the
very
spectrum.
far into the spectrum for
Yeah,
sure.
and there's no black or white for these people, really. So what they see is what they believe, which is can be scary and sad, you know. But I think it made this movie. Unfortunately, we didn't get the Ozzy / stomach open death, but you know, he wasn't far off.
No, yeah, he got like his ear bit, and which there's a good scene in part 3 out when I kind of summarize that a little bit here in a few minutes or whatever after you discuss part 2.
I'm not discussing part 2, are we?
What's that?
I said I'm not discussing part 2, are we?
No, you're just going to like go over it a little bit, and you know, it's like a quick like, you know, summary and like that sort of thing. We're not going, because the only other one we're going to do in detail is In the Hood, because I watched that one and I've got some notes on it, but some of the other ones I did watch, but I'm just going to like cover briefly. So, but they did some things in 3 with that whole, like when he, you know, you attacked Leprechaun and his blood that comes out, like, you know, that I think was interesting in that movie at least.
Yeah.
Dumbest moment, take your pick in this movie. I mean, there's so many dumb moments. The cop that doesn't call for backup and keeps following the leprechaun into the woods. Everyone stopping to find a 4-leaf clover while a demented little demon's on the loose. A shotgun that never needs reloaded. Gets on my nerves so fucking bad. Like that shotgun just continuously fires throughout this movie.
I was like, let's just fire off all the rounds. That's what did we get a cheat mode?
Somebody loaded infinite ammo or something in that thing, because it never runs out. He never has to go find any more, to my knowledge, and he keeps, you know, I thought at one point in time that it was going to like click drive, but like, no, it's just the fact that, you know, anytime he needed to shoot the leprechaun, he did.
Yes.
And then the swallowing the golden coin is mentioned. I mean, there's just, I don't know. Which one do you pick as the dumbest? Because I think they're all pretty dumb, honestly.
In terms of?
Just, I guess, like the protagonist being like stupid or whatever. Like, is there any particular ones that stands out to you, or?
God, you know? Hold on. No, because it seems like when they were, whatever they were doing, because there's multiple technically.
I just thought of one that I'll say is the dumbest in the movie.
Yeah.
If they had access to Jennifer Aniston's Jeep, why the fuck did they keep fucking around that truck?
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. I was about to say, I don't think there's any, because I know everything that they attempted to do, in my opinion, was for something, obviously. But that does make sense, because I was thinking about that. I was inadvertently thinking about that when she got in the car the second time. I'm like, oh, they could have just taken that. And now that you mention it, it does make sense. But like when they sent her out to go get the gold coins, obviously that was kind of dangerous. She wasn't surrounded by anybody. She was by herself. She had the shotgun. Admitted that she didn't know how to use it. And yeah, they're like, go here, you go get the gold coins, which she was successful in doing. I don't know. Like every time they sent somebody out, it was for something. Even Ozzy sent himself out because he's like, they want me. He was almost sacrificing himself. The kid was pretty decent at. He set up a trap, you know, and had to convince him. He was home aloneing it. His
face shoved in it.
Yes, he was home aloneing it for sure. You know. But yeah, no, I'm gonna have to agree with you then for sure. The whole, you know, maybe the scene where the dad, but he's not even in the movie, but this is what takes him out of the movie, is when he shoves his hand down that fucking hole to get the cat.
Yeah, let me just randomly shove my hand down some hole in the tree that, you know, surely there's no animal that will do anything that's down in there, or bugs or anything like that.
You know what bugged me the most about that is that did nobody see that the teeth marks were definitely that of a person? That was not a cat bite.
That's another dumb moment in the movie, that right there. But like, whenever they showed the Jeep, I was sitting there for a split second. The reason I bring it up, I was like, where the fuck did that come from? They've been dicking around with this truck the entire movie, like that was the only option they had to get off the property.
Yeah.
Why didn't they hop in that fucking thing?
That is so fucking funny.
but yeah, that's that movie in a nutshell. It's entertaining for what it is, but it's by no means the best that we've seen or will see. I mean, when it comes to any of these movies.